Well, we've been hearing about a lot of trends already that have been going on in the country and in the industry. And I tend to focus on technology and process and innovation and things of that nature. So I kind of gave an alternate title to this thing, other than just trends in technology and supply chain and other things. If we look at the past, we look at the present, we look at the future, where does technology fit and where do you want to fit? The organization is called TC Squared. We've been around since 1980. Our tagline is turning research into reality. And the reason for that is there are a lot of people doing a lot of research. And there are a lot of people doing a lot of research, but we don't always get something accomplished through all that research. So we want to be known as an organization that can take the things that we're looking at and bring them into reality. But the brand is TC Squared, or the Textile Clothing Technology Corporation. Like I said, we've been around since the 1980s, but we've always had a focus on technology. If we go back to our early developments, we were creating automated sewing machine handling systems and robotic sewing systems. And this is a video of an automatic felled seaming device that you load the folder and then the machine would handle the material from that point forward. We then developed a totally automated knitwear machine that operated from a stack of cut parts. Let's take a look at it. It operated from a stack of cut parts, and the finished product is what came off the machine. So using robotic systems and vision control systems, the entire garment was made in about 18 seconds. Well, guess what? The worldwide expected demand for this technology was about 3 or 4 machines. And like what happened to Sara Lee and Hanes brands with their automated hosiery machine, you put in nylon pellets and out came finished packaged hosiery, the landed cost from Asia was greater than the depreciation on the equipment. So production moved and the technology shifted, and TC Squared shifted with it. We started implementing programs to teach people not just about our technology, but how to take advantage of the most sophisticated, latest technologies and manufacturing systems. And we became known, and we got called a number of times as think tank for the industry. And I remember back in 1990 being so honored that our organization was called a think tank. And then as I progressed and started traveling around and visiting other think tanks, I realized there was a lot of thinking going on, not a whole lot of doing going on. And so I want to bring to you today a new concept for TC Squared. We want to be known as a do tank. We're not just sitting out there thinking about things, but we're accomplishing things. And to give you an example, we've been talking about digital printing for a long, long time. Talking isn't doing. Now, I've been around a lot of you today, and nobody has said to me, Mike, that doesn't look like a yarn-dyed woven shirt. Where did that come from? Well, it's not a yarn-dyed woven shirt. It was digitally printed. And it was printed from some colorants that did not require a chemical pretreatment to the fabric, did not require any steaming, washing, or rinsing, or post-processing to fix the colorants, which means it's a more sustainable system and technology. So not only do we need to implement technologies, but don't just automate something that we're already doing. Think differently about how we're going to use those technologies. And so in the case of digital printing, there are still a lot of opportunities. But let me share this with you. If you can create chemistry for digital printing that will allow you to print on fabric without a pre-treatment and no wet post-processing, why don't we use that chemistry on solid colors? Not for inkjet, because it really doesn't cover the way you need. But imagine that same chemistry creating films of color going onto white fabric at very high speeds, no chemical pretreatment, no chemical post-processing, maybe using microwave for a heat source to fix the colorants. And then you can move coloring to the cutting room. And when you talk about compressing or taking 10 days out of a cycle, imagine if color commitments that currently have to be made 3 to 6 months from retail can be made 1 to 2 weeks from retail. Can we be more responsive to our customers? You bet. So we need to not just think, we need to do. And innovation always is important, because with that you will be able to sustain. Now you can think about sustainability in a number of ways. It's a word that didn't mean a whole lot to us 5 years ago, but today it's moving through all our companies, our business lives, our professional lives. So what is sustainability? Is it recycling, carbon footprints? How many of you here know how to calculate your personal carbon footprint? How many of you here want to know how to calculate your personal carbon footprint? Yeah, there's one or two, the engineers. Most people don't want to know. How many of you, though, want to know that you're contributing to a more sustainable environment? Yes, we all will raise our hands. So let's think about it differently. 3 words. Sustainability is performance without waste. Identify the waste, either reduce it or eliminate it, and you're creating a more sustainable environment. How many of you remember aircraft detection before we had radar? There were some very interesting technologies that were developed. Different mechanisms for listening. This is the first team-based system for aircraft detection. And you go, what happened? Technology. Or how many of you remember when you needed a forklift to transport a 5 megabyte hard drive? That's right. Let me show you the rest of the picture. That's the first 5 megabyte hard drive, 1956, being loaded onto a Pan American Airlines plane. Well, guess what? Look at this. 64 gigabyte memory stick. Weighs almost nothing. Well, guess what? 2 terabytes of memory. What happened? And this is the workstation. That was a 5 megabyte hard drive in the background. It was called the IBM 305 RAMAC, Random Access Memory for Accounting and Control, because that's all we needed to know how to do at the time. These are the workstations of today. What happened? Technology. So what's the point? We've got to be prepared to think, and not just think differently, but do differently. So let's go to the past. 1970s. If you ordered something from a catalog, how long were you required to wait for delivery? It said in the very small print, you must allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. Currently, the length of time that today's consumers are willing to wait, if you order by the internet or catalog or telephone, is actually less than 3 days, and this is a worldwide number. Where's the future? The length of time that consumers will wait for delivery, you guessed it. It's going to be less than 24 hours. So what are you going to do to respond to that from a technology standpoint, from a process standpoint? Well, here's the point. You can't live in the past. So we've got to live in the present, get ready for the future. That's why I say I only have 2 feet. One's in the present, one's in the future. We really don't have time for the past. We don't have a leg for it either, unless you have one of those 3-legged stools that we saw earlier today. So what happened? Yes, the answer is technology. What else happened? Yeah, there were process changes to go along with it. And so this isn't new, but my good friend Ram Strange said, oh yeah, show that. Years ago, I saw this. And if I asked you, if somebody said, I want you to fold a t-shirt in one of the most innovative ways, how many of you would have come up with something like this? You want to see it again? I thought you might. can add a little volume. It's Japanese, so you wouldn't necessarily understand what she's saying anyway. Okay, I know some of you want to see it again. And you can't all see very well from there, so I have witnesses here up front with me. I brought a t-shirt, and afterwards, if anybody has an interest, I will give you a personal lesson. It really turns out to be pretty simple after you understand how to do it. When you lay your shirt out and you're going, oh, we're doing the dividing thing, we're going to fold it this way and that way, we pick up here, we go to the bottom, we do one of these shake, rattles, and rolls, fold it across, and you've got a t-shirt. I didn't invent that. But you don't need to be the inventor. You just need to recognize when something really cool comes along that you want to take advantage of. And I will say now, you're finally getting comfortable with what, Mike? Shipping a product before it is manufactured. How many of you know how to do that? Well, you're going to be more comfortable with it before the day is out, because if you start looking at all the steps in the supply chain, in this case a pair of men's cotton slacks, there are a lot of them, from the cotton field all the way to the retail store. I decided to kind of narrow it down into 4 steps, being product creation, manufacturing, selling, and shipping. And in the 1960s, this was a very physical process, and that was the sequence in which things happened. Product was created, we made a bunch of it, had an inventory, put people out on the road to sell it, took orders, and then we shipped it. Supply chain started to evolve. In the 1980s, we started recognizing that, boy, if we could get some orders first before we committed to all this production, we might be a little bit more efficient. So we had this idea, let's go sell some of the stuff that we've designed, get some orders, and then start manufacturing. And you started hearing terms like quick response and mass customization come along, and a number of companies did this for a percentage of their production. Well, in this decade, things have changed again. Because if you can delay the manufacturing, you can be more efficient and more effective. So why don't we delay it a little bit further? Just think, if you could ship it first and then make it, you wouldn't have to make those commitments so early. Well, some people say, how do you do that, Mike? That's kind of crazy. You can't ship something that you haven't made. Yes, you can. You just have to think about it a little bit differently. And so think about digital products. Think about product converters as the technology for doing that. And so rather than it being a future thing, it's now in the present. People are shipping products before they're manufactured, and the first industry to do that was the newspaper industry. And the USA Today was really created with the digital supply chain in mind. Rather than make all their papers and ship them all over the world, they created a digital newspaper. They shipped it all over the world in digital format, converted it at local printers, closer to the point of consumption. You say, okay, well, you can do that with a printer. Well, you couldn't do it before that. So what else has happened? Airline tickets. Who carries around a paper ticket anymore? You just carry it on your cell phone. Concert tickets, now digitally distributed. Money. And the iPod, which is old technology now, did away with the need for cassettes and CDs. They're obsolete. You download your music directly to your converter. And guess what? One of the industries we thought would never happen in digital form, the movie industry, is doing away with DVDs. And in the United States, Blockbuster is having a lot of trouble because who wants to go to the store and pick out a movie and then have to carry it back? It's about perspective, isn't it? How you think about it. Remember how we used to make telephone calls? You had to go through a third party. Well, and then we moved forward. This is a payphone, which I haven't used one in a long time, but this was in Colombia. I thought, that's looking a little grungy. And then I was in Japan a little bit later, and I saw a pretty modern version of the payphone, but I still haven't used one in a while. Same year, I was in Mexico, and I saw this one. I said, well, that looks even more advanced. The swipe and call. And then I looked on the wall, and there was a bank of them. The guy was with me. I was pointing it out. Look at that technology. He said, yes, somebody's already swiped 2 of them. And I went, maybe that is the future. We're not going to be using these things. They're going to disappear. They're going to be replaced by other technology. We have to be ready for that. Yeah, it's a guy sitting in a tree hunting. Guess how things are going to change? If you're not ready for it, if you're not thinking about it, are you ready for it? Or look at your competition. If you don't do it, they're going to do it. Somebody's going to be thinking differently, doing differently. And you have to open your mind to those sorts of things. So as we come back to the digital supply chain, we look at, well, okay, you can do it in the movie industry, you can do it in the music industry, you can do it in the newspaper industry, airline tickets and all that. How are we going to do it in our industry? Well, believe it or not, it's really already happening. Digital products are being created. And if you just do a little Google search on virtual dressing sites, I thought maybe there would be a handful. And I started looking and looking and more and more and more virtual dressing sites. Now, they all claim different things. Can they deliver? Well, you're going to have to determine that. Some are. Some are providing more value. The products are not physical, they're digital. I only got about halfway through the list and I got tired, so that was only about half of it. But we're going to see this more and more and more and more, this virtual dressing. And it's coming to your smartphone. The ability to download your personal size and fit information and do shopping and things of that nature. And one of the core technologies comes back to 3D body scanning, which was an early project of TC Squared. We're not the only ones that make body scanners today. We were the first company to develop it for the apparel industry. And so we still are developing the software and using it with other scanners and scanning systems. In fact, in 1998, we had a scanner that was 180 square feet. Today, it's down to 20 square feet. And of course, the scanning technology has changed and all that. But the whole point is, we have to first get scanned, and then other things can happen. And we want to look at, show you some of the things we're working on from a full retail solution, where it starts with scanning, where you get measured, and then it moves forward. Imagine a system where you get scanned, and not only do you get measurements, but you get automatic shape analysis, and you get advice. Because to create an avatar, we take a picture, put your picture on your avatar, and then the system, by recognizing your skin tones, will recommend colors for you, and it will recommend styles based on your body shape, and will bring them up. And you have the ability with an interactive mirror in a retail store to try them on virtually before you try them on physically. So if you like how it looks on your avatar, then take it into the dressing room. Not only that, the technology will tell you what size to take into the dressing room because it matches your body specifications with the fit characteristics of the product. So this woman, she's in Belgium, she never would have thought about that red dress, but the system recommended it, she put it on, she liked it. Well, once you've done that, there's a follow-on system, and TC Squared is partnering with this. It will allow you to go back to that same retail store online if you've been scanned, pull up your avatar, try on different things, and purchase them from that store. So it's a cloud-based system. Point is, shopping can be fun again, especially for men who don't like going in the stores to begin with. And one of the things that's critical about this kind of process is visualization. And there are a number of companies that are working on better visualization for online shopping, but also for product development. And many of you know TUCATEC is one of those companies that is doing a lot of really creative work in that particular area and making it visual enough to where you can see and understand, in this case, where are the pressure points, where do you want them to be. So you'll be hearing from Ram later, but you start with this digital body model, this 3D point cloud in space, and then from that, you want to be able to create an avatar, but the technology has to be flexible so that it doesn't matter who gets scanned. We can create an avatar that's realistic, that has skin textures and all those sorts of things, because then what you want to be able to do is make those realistic-looking avatars, and they can come in a variety of shapes and sizes And again, some technology that's been developed to allow that to happen. And to be able to do it with clothes on. Put the same outfit on a lot of different body shapes and sizes, regardless of their dimensions and or their shape. And you want it to look like them. So if you can take a picture, identify some key landmarks, put your face on your avatar, put clothes on that avatar, see what they look like, order them, and maybe they're not in the store, so they'll need to be converted. And you know what? 3D knitting is not new. It's 15 plus years old. But it is a technology that you could imagine a 3D CAD file coming from online shopping delivered to the closest 3D knitting machine, just like you deliver newspapers to the closest conversion machine. And now it has a new name. I don't know if you've been hearing about it, but it's called Additive Manufacturing. And so as we look at the future, I want you to think about how this might apply to your supply chains. Because it might become addictive once you get into and understand what is additive manufacturing. So people say, Mike, what is additive manufacturing? I say, well, it's pretty simple. It's the opposite of subtractive manufacturing. Okay, so what is subtractive manufacturing? Taking things away from your base material supply. So drilling a hole in a block of wood, machining a part or a piece of metal, carving wood, you're subtracting, sculpting, ice carving. And guess what? Most apparel manufacturing is subtractive because you lay out the fabric and you cut away from it. So let me show you some concepts in additive manufacturing, and we'll wind up and take questions if you have any. There's one process called contour crafting. In this case, you're looking at ceramics that are being created, extruded from a 3D CAD file. Ceramics. So someday, if you break your coffee cup at home, you'll just make another one. Of course, you'll need a kiln for it. Oh, and concrete. Can you imagine that we won't need bricks to create brick walls, but we can create concrete walls through additive manufacturing from a 3D CAD file that creates a wall right on site? Or 3D printing. You can make a toy, you can make a tool, you can make a prosthetic, you can make a lot of different things from it, from a 3D CAD file, output directly to a 3D printer. Here's the first airplane that was made using additive manufacturing. This was done in the UK. It's a plane that was designed and printed, and it flew first time in less than a week. Now, it wasn't full size, but it shows that you can design, create, manufacture, and then it works, and you see it come to a safe landing. All right, let's enlarge the scale a bit. Instead of having all the supplies on site, let's think about how we might use additive manufacturing to build buildings or houses or other things of that nature. And again, this isn't new either. My grandmother used to knit. Started with the raw materials, ended up with a blanket or something. It wasn't subtractive, it was additive. So it's been around a while, but now we're starting to understand how we might take advantage of it. 3D knitting is one of the technologies that fits. Shimaseki out of Japan stole out of Germany, create this technology, and it's making its way into our industry. Timberland has been using it for more than 10 years for making prototypes of shoes, for the soles of their shoes. And this is a nylon glove called the Michael Jackson glove. And there was a bikini. You can actually Google 3D printed bikini and you'll see a little story about that. It was made out of N12 nylon, as some other products have. I don't know how comfortable they are, but they're 3D products made from 3D files using additive manufacturing. There's a designer in the Netherlands who created a whole line of product. This wasn't 3D printed in total. The parts were 3D printed and then seamed together. So where's it going? Well, this was the first completely 3D printed dress. Designer Michael Schmidt made it. Again, it's made out of nylon. It looks good, but I don't have an idea how comfortable it might be. But let's start with how it looks. And then there are all kinds of things that are capable. You get into to weapons and prosthetics. We're actually working with the U.S. military for 3D printing of prosthetics because it's a sad thing when a soldier loses an arm or a leg. But if you had a body scan of that soldier before they lost that arm or that leg, then you could scan them afterwards. You could get the exact 3D dimensions of that lost limb and do a better job of creating prosthetic devices. How about 3D printed meats? Yeah, there's some work going on with bioengineered meat products. Someday you might go into a restaurant and order a steak or a hamburger, and they'll print it for you. And how about your unborn baby? Get an ultrasound, download the 3D file to a 3D printer, and you can have a little model of your unborn baby. And yes, there's some work being done with bioengineered leather where you would 3D print a jacket or a pocketbook. So what's the future? Here's what I see. The creation of some nanoparticle fiber substances that have the characteristics of cotton or other natural fibers that can be ink-jetted into 3D garments and accessories. See, nylon doesn't sound very comfortable. Cotton does sound comfortable, but it doesn't exist. But if we can think it, we might be able to do it. If we can't think it, we'll never do it. But if we can begin thinking about it, we can begin driving the development so that that can happen, and we can see the pieces are coming together so that someday you may have a 3D garment printer in your home. And so you make what you're going to wear today, and at the end of the day, rather than going to the laundry, you put it through your recycling system for the materials so that you can make it into what you're going to wear tomorrow. Does it fit? I think so. Thank you.